The Express.
Welcome to the Express podcast. We are grateful to have Max Fried on for this episode. He's an all-star starting pitcher for the Atlanta Braves and a dear friend of ours. On this episode, we talk about off-season updates, his ability to evolve as a player, and the state of youth sports. Thanks for listening. Welcome back to the Express podcast. We are fortunate to be joined by none other than Max Fried, an ex-teammate, but a beloved one, and we're looking forward to spending some time with him. So, Max, welcome, Max.
Yeah, welcome back.
Welcome back.
Yeah,
welcome
Max
back.
Is an OG.
Come on.
Yeah.
He's an
That's
OG
true.
on the pod.
But no longer a COVID one. We can actually
Right.
be
Yeah,
it's
we can be in person.
in person.
That's
Not
very
socially
true.
distanced.
Where were you guys at when we did that? Do you remember? Were you in New York?
We were in New York.
Yes.
With a lot.
Yeah, we
Remember
were.
that.
Yeah.
Okay, so off-season update.
Get into it. Get into
We're
it.
trying to be better with our likes and ums.
Yeah, it's a problem. We're fixing it.
We are.
Hold each other accountable.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so
I'm like so not.
where are you at in your off-season sort of training? How's it looking? How's it going?
I don't know how long this is going to take from film to, obviously put out, but we're end of January, so big ramp up. Throwing bullpens, kind of just fine-tuning some stuff going into camp, and really, for me, it's a lot about assessing my year, making some changes, and then just going and trying to implement it. I mean, last year was kind of tough for me with a lot of injuries. I had, 3 separate injuries, 3 separate stints on the IL. So, the best ability is availability, as we like to say. So, for me, I'm trying to stay on top of mobility and stretching and, getting my body ready to get through a 7-month season. That's really long, but it's fun. I like I was here out in Atlanta a lot, which was amazing. I love spending it out here. Got a house a couple years ago. Been working out at the Brave Stadium and at Maven out here in Atlanta. So yeah, feel like it kind of flew by. It's we're heading to camp here soon. It's pretty crazy.
I know. I feel like off seasons every year go faster and faster, but all of them are different. So I always enjoy hearing other people's off seasons because we all make adjustments. We're all aware of what we struggled with, what we can get better at. I know you're not one to give away your secrets, so I'm not going to start asking about specific things that you
I'll ask.
are doing in terms of pitches or what you're trying to correct. But when it comes to the health things, what have you kind of noticed has been something that's more or less held you back? Because I know we've talked a lot about just some of the weight stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Dansby's
Gosh.
gotten big on nutrition lately.
Very big.
Is that
me
something
as well.
Yeah.
Big time. I've struggled over probably the last 3-4 years with some health stuff, and just really tried to lock in on diet and it's a complete lifestyle change, going from being in the minor leagues to only eating Waffle House and fast food all the time, and that's kind of what you get acclimated to. And
A little bit younger.
a little bit younger, a little bit better,
Stomach it
just
a
being
little
able
bit
to get
easier.
through it. And as you get older, you realize that what you put in your body is actually fuel. So just cleaning it all up, being more aware of your diet and your nutrition, and
Well, you don't notice
all
the
that-
difference
no.
when you're young. You can just get away with
Yeah, you just wake
everything.
up and run it.
no,
And then you
it's
start to realize that if I want to perform at a high level, an elite level every day, I mean, for you, it's every 5th day, but every day I need to refuel. I need to make sure that there's certain things I'm putting in my body. And one thing that, you can go down the rabbit hole of what's healthy, what's not healthy. At the end of the day, it's what works and is healthy for you and what makes your body tick, because what makes you go may not make me go, and trying to figure that out can be a little bit of a process, which is, once again, why every off season is different.
Yeah. No, it's been a journey. It's I don't know how to explain it. It's hard to find what works for you. You try a bunch of different stuff, especially diet wise. I went pretty elimination diet, where I originally cut out all sugars, all bread, and ate all whole foods, which was really difficult because I had unknowingly had a pretty crazy sugar addiction, like
Yeah.
most of us do,
Still
where you
do,
don't.
brother. Right here.
Yep,
Yeah.
You're
and
looking at
oh,
it.
you're
You don't notice how bad it is until
it's
you're like,
until you cut it out,
yeah.
and then once you realize that you can,
Itching. Yeah.
yeah, and then once you realize that you just have to get through that, and then you replace it where fruit starts tasting like, some dessert, and then
Yeah.
you can do some crazy things where, if you throw a banana on the stove, it caramelizes a little bit, and it's sweet, and
Get your
it's
fix.
I mean, that's you get your fix different ways.
Yeah.
So it's
See me in
Dansby,
spring
we'll put you on.
whipping
hey, no,
Tune into
it's-
YouTube for
it
cooking with
is-
Dansby.
Yeah.
That's
Dishes
probably one of
with
my.
Dan.
First time caramelizing.
You want the pan hot to start.
It's probably one of my sneaky favorite desserts these days. But just the cutting all that out, understanding that if you want to be able to recover, the first thing in that step is what you eat and what you put in your body.
Yeah, and it can be. I think at times that can be hard because just like when you change a workout plan, you may not see the results in the first week or two, but trusting that over time it's going to give you some longevity. It's the penny in the piggy bank philosophy of doing the right things each day is going to lead to a more successful year. And I think what can even be tougher at times is you've made all these changes and then you experienced what you did this past year were some tough luck when in terms of injuries and just different things that happen that you can never really account for. And it's easy to get frustrated of like, I did all of this and I'm still getting this certain result. And that's why there's an ever evolving process and a balance. And, I kind of got to the point of this year of trying to do some things a little bit differently because what I was doing was working, but I felt that if I made a few subtle tweaks here and there, I could elevate my game even more.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also, I mean, it's a calculated decision, but it's still a tough one to do because we are comfortable in what works and, and how to, stay with that process.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, and I think I'm interested. How much sleep do you try to get? Like, how much of a factor is sleep in your nutrition wellness?
I would say it's extremely important. I tend to sleep pretty well. I would say on average, I wear an Oura ring, so it just kind of helps me stay accountable. I would say I average between, on a lesser night, it's about 7.5, and on a good night, it's like 9. So I try to stay. If I can get 8,
Is
pretty,
that
pretty happy.
8 hours in bed or is that 8 hours of actual sleep?
That's 8 hours of Oura ring sleep.
Okay.
In bed,
Yes.
it's so disappointing. I get to bed at 10 and I wake up at 7 or 7:30 or something like that, and you're like, oh, like that's a solid 9.5 hours. Then you look at the things like, well, you rolled over a bunch and you did all this, and you look up and it's like just over 8 hours, and so that part's frustrating. But I tried to Oura ring standards. I try to go like 8 hours, around 8 hours.
How much does that change? Like, how hard is that in season? Because I know you guys are moving and traveling, and
The travel part's the toughest.
The travel part, and I was gonna say we talked to him about it too because they play so many day games.
That throws a wrench into things.
Right.
You never can get on schedule because at home you're playing in the day games and you're on a schedule, and then you go on the road and it's all night games basically. So it's back and forth. I would say I probably sleep a little bit better on the road than I do at home, just because I got my dog at home, and my dog likes to get up in the morning, and he does the little yawn cry, and
oh yeah,
It's
paws
time to
at
get up.
me,
Time
and
to
it's
get up,
like-
Dad.
And he's an extremely food-driven dog, so all he wants to do is eat at all times. So he's not going to miss a meal, and he definitely doesn't want to miss breakfast. So he gets me up. So sometimes I get up, I feed him, and I go back to bed. But
Yeah.
There's also like less life stresses on the road, I feel like.
well, you
You're
have
in your
one,
Less
you got one
distractions.
job, and that's
Yeah.
to wake up and go to the field and play.
Right.
That's it.
Right. And
don't have any-
this stuff is always going on at home, you know, and I think that in itself is a challenge. So you kind of figure out different ways to maneuver it and handle it. Have you found anything that's like helped sleep? Do you take supplements before you go to bed? Do you take things that you feel like have increased your ability to like recover?
I haven't until this off season. I started to be a little bit more diligent with my supplement routine, I guess I would say. I feel like a lot of the times you can get caught up, or you just, I don't know, for me, like I'd always forget unless it was literally sitting in front of me. Normally you put them in the cabinet or whatever. So I just started trying to leave them right on the counter. So whenever I walk by, I do it. But I take, it's called, I could be getting this wrong. I don't know. It's magnesium biglycinate.
The Thorn.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
that
do
one.
that too.
I normally take, I think I double the I
Double
just
the
take,
scoop?
yeah, I do 2 scoops and I do 2 scoops, and I
Magnesium?
just noticed that it just doesn't help. It doesn't like knock me out, but it definitely kind of like
Just
calms everything
simmers,
down,
yeah.
just like soothes me a little bit, and it's easier to get to bed because I can definitely get into bed and just stare at the ceiling
Well, and I
for
think
45 minutes.
in the season when y'all start a game, it's better now that the games are faster. But like,
Yeah.
I mean, when we lived with D, it was like
Mm.
he was at the field at 10:30, 11, and then getting home at midnight.
Mhm.
Sometimes later.
Yeah, I
Yep.
mean you're constantly doing 10-hour days, and getting home late, and then it's just not a normal sleep schedule
Mhm.
to be sleeping from 2 to 10.
And it's
Like, that's just
different
not a
than everyone
normal-
else who has to perform, during the day. You have to bring your
It's
best at when
7.
everyone's getting ready for bed and winding down. That's when you have to elevate everything.
I've talked with my nutritionist a lot about this. Done some different like testing and studies on my cortisol levels, and when we first ran the test, my cortisol levels get really high at night, but they're not in the morning, and it's
Night
usually supposed
games.
to be in the morning and then wind
Mhm.
down, but
Mhm.
because my body's so ingrained to
Yep.
be stressed at night, and so it's kind of something that we're tinkering and trying to figure out different ways to manage it, because
Yeah.
especially now with the amount of day games that we play, being able to almost have 2 different kind of schedules
Yep.
to operate on, which there is no more electric place to play than Wrigley on a day game. It's phenomenal.
Been
we,
there.
can get to Max carving us up in a minute at Wrigley this year. But yeah, it's an ever evolving process,
1914
which is one thing that I did have
Electric.
written down that I wanted to talk to you about is, what do you attribute like that success to, of being able to honestly reflect going into an off season of what you're wanting to correct? Because I know you're a routine driven guy. Like
Mhm.
we're very similar in that regard. So what is it that you attribute being able to do that with?
Constantly evaluating, reevaluating, and being, at times, I've always been probably my harshest critic. So it's never about, I would say I tend to pick apart my game more than I will sit there and like compliment my game.
Mhm.
There's a lot more that I want to do, or that I think that I'm capable of doing, that I feel like I fall short of, that whatever doesn't sit well with me at the end of the season, I kind of say, I want to make sure I get better at that. And then I want to add that to my game, and I'm going to make sure that the other stuff that I do, I don't slack on, but this is something that I'm going to make a priority and integrate it. So for me, it's every year. I mean, it's kind of a joke now where it's, my Cranny, our pitching coach, called me up and just was like, okay, so what are you bringing to camp to this year? So it's just like, it's one of those things where I guess the guys in the organization, my teammates, know that I kind of just like add or bring something a little bit different every year. But for me, it's fun. Like it's a challenge. It's something that it drives me to constantly keep getting better and add a little bit more, or constantly refining, because that in this game it's a constant game of adjustments, and if you're not adjusting, or if you're not changing with the times, or you're not making different additions to your game, they're going to figure you out, and then they're going to pass you up. So as long as you can kind of not stay ahead of the curve, but as long as your ability to be flexible and change things up, you give yourself a better chance.
I was gonna say, it's kind of like the old phrase: either you figure it out to adapt or you become a dinosaur, and everyone knows what happens to dinosaurs. And so it's always interesting to hear you guys talk about your off season and what you're doing, because the best players are the people within the game, which you two respectively are, some of them, they're always looking, right? They're always looking for something or the next thing or like that little thing. And you can listen to anybody who's been a great, and they always say, oh, each year, like Kobe, LeBron, whoever, each year they're looking for that next little thing that they can add. Or, oh, I'm not like, the most successful people are their toughest critic, I think, a lot. So I think that's a good trait to have. Like some people I think get, real negative with it.
Exactly, within reason.
It's a balance. It's a balance, and we both struggle with that too, because nothing ever seems to be good enough, and trying to make the adjustment to speaking to yourself in a more positive light. Or I watch film breakdown of a swing and I immediately start nitpicking the things I don't like, instead of looking from a different perspective and focusing on the things that I'm doing well, because you can pretty much nitpick anybody's swing or pitching mechanics or their outing and say, you did this poorly or you did that poorly.
It's like we say all the time too, baseball's a game of failure anyways.
Right.
Well, and it is
so
good.
I was just going to say, I mean, you're failing constantly. So using that terminology is like your harshest critic, because but like we said, it's like 3 out of 10 can go in the Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
It's also like your definition of success too. So we talked about this on the last time Max was on. Like, it was interesting to listen to you speak, because obviously you're 3 years into your career, farther than that, and you were just saying how you had to change at that point. You had to change your perspective of like what success was for you each day.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you were 1 for 4, but you got on 3 of them and they just were caught or whatever. And then you were talking like how you may make good pitches, but just sometimes they just hit it. Like, they're good too. You know what I mean? Like, so
they're really good.
You may, they're really good.
Guys are really, really good in this game.
Guys are good, and guys, he may make the pitch he wanted to, but someone may have outthought him or
had a read on it.
I think he's going to throw this, and they
were right,
and they're right, and that happens, and that's another tailspin that you can go down and be like, well, why was he thinking that? You start like trying to over-adjust.
And what I think that's so interesting too is that is why like people wonder why guys get so upset at like balls and strikes. And from your perspective, like if you're facing him, day game in Wrigley,
which he punched me out on 2 pitches. I got called 2 pitches that weren't even close.
See, okay, so
but
and
they were called strikes. So
they were called strikes.
So
they're
that's
strikes
nonetheless. It's 2 different perspectives, because for you have to be in the box going, you cannot give him that. Like, that cannot be.
He's already hard enough to hit.
He's
quit
already
giving
one of the best pitchers
him.
in the
Yeah,
game.
quit
Like,
giving
he doesn't
him.
Need John Tam.
Yes,
I do.
Yes, I do.
And then
And Max is like, that's exactly where I wanted it.
But then you're probably looking at it as, well, if you're going to give that to me,
That's exactly.
I'm pounding it.
I'm gonna throw it there again.
Dude,
But
I
at the
texted
same
him
time,
after the
it's
game.
yeah, it's
and you said that was a ball.
the part of it too is like it's a game, right? Like you're still
playing
playing
the
the game.
Yeah.
And that's, I think,
The game within the game.
yeah, and that's, and I just came to my head because I'm like, in my free time, like I really enjoy board games. So like I will be playing, whether it's Catan, or playing, like I just got into this off season, I've been watching the most YouTube videos of chess and just like playing a ton of chess.
Chess
We need a
is
live,
making a
we need a
comeback right
live
now.
stream a
This
game
is
of
so
Catan
nice.
out here, dude.
Yeah.
So
I do
but
love Catan.
I'm loving this.
I just like, I love, like, for me, competition, gamesmanship, and like
Strategy.
and strategy
Yeah.
is that's what I get off to.
Because those
Like,
games
that's
are
my
all
thing.
Such a
strategy.
pitcher.
That's what I'm saying. And you
That's-
have to figure out how to pivot.
And
And
that-
it's all about being able to
on the fly.
think about something, and hey, maybe this strategy that you came into with it, like, that's not working right now. They're blocking you and they're combating you. It's like, okay, you're gonna sit there and fold and just crumble, or are you gonna sit there and pivot and like think of something else to try to get out of it?
Well, and it's once again, all this is so much of a balance, because it's on a per game basis. Because
Mhm.
if the umpires may be given a couple inches off the outside one game, do you really want to adjust your sights and your eyes to cover a pitch. It's not a strike. Whereas the next game, you start chasing off you put yourself in a rut because now you've gotten out of your strike zone. So it is a little bit of a balance there of understanding,
Oh, no.
you know, how to compete within that. That's not going to lead you, you know, to more failure.
It definitely is, because I mean, just like you guys have strategies to go against people you're facing, you obviously have strategies to go against people you're thrown against. So you could have a strategy of, hey, I want to attack, Dansby this certain type of way, and then you could get up there and you're throwing and you're hitting your spots, but it's just not being called how you want it to. So then you have to adjust quickly within. That's why baseball. So people say baseball is boring. It's, if you know what you're watching, it's
Yeah, it's
really
just
not.
knowing.
And very, very simple. Like if you have a guy like Bryce Elder, for instance, or Kyle Hendricks for us, somebody that can really sink the ball and move the ball and stays out of the middle of the plate. Well, if they're not getting edges or they're not getting the ball
Long night.
down, it might be a long day just because it's really hard that's what they do. And
Yeah.
sometimes it can be hard for guys to adjust, but that's
Not gonna
one
pump
thing that I think
198 past
that we've all
somebody.
said that makes him so good is because he can wear different hats, right? If he wants to get you out, and I'm just going to speak on this, you don't have to go into detail because I know how you roll. But if he wants to get you out with sinkers and changeups one at bat, he can. If he wants to get you out with four seams up and in and sliders, he can. If he wants to get you out with speeding you up, slowing you down with his curveball, and he can. So he can do different things based on how many times he wants to get through the lineup and all those kinds. There's not many guys that do that.
Oh no, he's a problem.
Most guys, and we were saying this, we were like, when someone's on, if you were to take everybody in the big leagues and when they're on, he's top 5. Like if everyone's on their A game, he's top 5.
He gets his look in his eye.
He can get you out in multiple fashions. He's not even going to pay attention to me while I'm talking about this. So that's why I'm looking at y'all. I'll watch the film later. But that's what makes him so elite at what he does, is because of that ability and the gamesmanship like he's referring to. So next, more about just like youth baseball and where that's at, plus advice to younger kids. Because I mean, kids ask us all the time, right? Like, what does it take to get there? And if you ask every athlete, they're all going to say the same thing: hard work. It can't be replaced, and just the sacrifices that it takes to get to that level. But when you look at youth sports right now, we're in a wild time. Wild time, like specialization at a young age. And I know there's that trend of kids getting Tommy John.
I was literally thinking
when
about
they were
that.
young and all these things. So if you were to kind of sum it up, where's youth baseball at? What kind of adjustments would you make? And then we can get into some of the advice for younger kids.
Okay.
It's like I've been thinking about this.
No, one of my like closest family friends is very involved in like the high school baseball circuit. So like I see it from a little bit from like the outside perspective, but everything these days is just so competitive, right? Like these kids they're good. They're exposed to the most information that you could possibly have at this time. Like if you had the access to the information that you have right now, but at 12 years old, like it's crazy. You had, when we were growing up, like you had a hitting coach, you had a pitching coach, and they kind of just like told you what to do, and they told you more mentality stuff, maybe some mechanics. But these days there's like, guys are talking about hip shoulder separations and like
I didn't learn about that
angles.
Like in the big leagues.
But that's what I'm saying. Like these kids are being exposed to this and seeing this on like
Video and iPad.
Videos or on social media and all this stuff. And I'm not saying that it's bad at all. It's a lot of information to give someone that is 12, 13, 14, 15 years old. Their bodies are maturing. They're changing all the time. Like I remember the joke was for me my whole life growing up, but I didn't know where the ball was going because every time that I got into baseball season, I grew another 2 to 3 inches. So like if you grow 2 to 3 inches, that changes your balance points, changes your
eye level and
your arm lengths. Everything is constantly changing. So you're constantly having to relearn how to throw with new body parts and new timing and all of that kind of stuff. So my biggest thing is going back to the specialization. I think people just need to be more athletic in general, just playing all the sports, being able to run. Like, I didn't play baseball full time until I was a senior in high school. I played football, basketball, and baseball whenever it was football season, basketball, whatever season it was is what I played. And then in 9th grade, I played tackle football for my first time. I got hit on my blind, I got hit from behind. I was a quarterback and just was like, you know what, this isn't for me. So I stopped football.
Lefty QB.
Yeah, lefty
That
QB.
Little
Could
panic-
throw
little
it,
panic
was
action.
good. Just like, I was like, you know what?
Did Mason
I
tell
don't
you to
want-
say that so he could show his high school quarterback clip again?
No, but
it's
I'd
not
love to
coming.
see it.
No,
He threw a
it's
touchdown
on the
pass.
internet.
Touchdown in high school.
It's on the internet.
I've got
Check the film.
Check the film.
I think I've got 1 2-point conversion maybe or something like that.
Attaboy.
Nothing like
Hey.
Less than me.
there was only one team on the high school that I was at. There was one. It was a varsity team. I was a freshman. I got put
Listen,
on.
you
What
got
he
a little
doesn't
love.
tell you
Body
is he
bites.
threw it to Evan Ingram. So Evan Ingram did all the work.
I did.
That's-
Well,
yeah.
he did
It's
get
a good
open,
tight end to have.
But I
in your
want to
corner.
remind
That's a
you.
nice-
And
that's
his,
a
and
nice
his running back was
uh,
Kenyon Drake.
name drop.
His running back was Kenyon.
Yeah,
tight end
my
was
running
Evan
back
Ingram.
Kenyon.
Shout out
Is
Evan
that,
making the Pro Bowl, by the way.
That's
Yeah.
pretty.
Yeah.
That's pretty solid.
But once again, I want to remind everyone that
They had 10 in the box.
they were blitzing me. I went
Again,
from
watch the
left
film.
tackle to quarterback and had sweaty palms and hands and gloves and
Dude, my favorite is he's literally bent over like
you threw the touchdown though, right?
yeah.
Oh yeah.
So that's all that matters.
Well, that's because, dude, coach was like, if I put you back there and you drop this, like, he's like, number one, you're gonna look so fat, and then number two, like, you just cannot do that. Like, I'm gonna look very, you know,
Do not do that to me.
please. The coach is gonna be upset.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, he's not gonna be upset that the left tackle just threw a 26-yard bomb. Like, that's a problem. But no, I think it's interesting going back to the youth sports because now everything is so specialized. Like, I obviously teach at a high school, and we were talking today about kids, how they don't, it's a battle to get them to play more than one sport. And at our high school, it's interesting because our coaches encourage that. Like, they want the best basketball kids
people
to
don't do
go
that everywhere.
yeah, to go play football, and they want the best football kids to go play
Run track
basketball, or run track. It just makes you a better athlete. But you're correct; they do not do that. Like, most high school coaches are like,
We've convinced them as society though, like if you don't play one sport, you'll get passed up
There's
because you're
also-
not going to be
You're not
good
getting
enough.
looks.
You're not going to be
Yeah.
specialized enough. I just think that is a really slippery slope and a bad trend because there are certain instances where some specialization at a certain point is completely fine.
Yeah.
But when you're a
There's-
young kid, I think just the overall development of the athleticism, there's things that you do in basketball that you just are not ever going to perform on a baseball field, but it will help you perform better on a baseball field. It's the competition factor.
It's like that clip that I
Bobby.
showed you, our boy Bobby Maggs. Shout out Bobby Maggs. But I saw a clip on Instagram the other day, and he's talking about doing a practice session with Dansby, and like Dansby just couldn't get this feeling of his hips coming through the ball. And Bobby used the analogy: you played basketball, right? When you're coming around a pick, when you're setting up, like that's the hip lock that we want right there. Like imagine it from playing basketball. You've done it a million times.
Dude, he literally thought-
Translated in, it's the same
It's-
feeling. It's the same
it's
movement.
it's body movement.
He
It's
literally
just
set
human
a
movement.
pick for me in the cage. He's like, he was like, come around me. Cause he's like, do you like shooting, right? Like you want to square, do you like squaring your left to your right to shoot this way? Or do you like coming around the other way? I was like, I like going around the other way because this gets in line quicker. With the basket. And he was like, perfect. That's what we're
Where I
trying
want
to
you
do.
to
So
go.
he literally is like standing there in the cage, setting this pick. I come around.
He's rolling around
And he's
the
like,
pick.
now just get up to like where you'd want your bat to be. And I did. And he's like, that's the position. And that helped me of just understanding balance and
'Cause it's something you've
implementing
done.
athleticism in a batter's box.
Right.
It's an athletic movement.
Right.
That's what, just at the end of the day, there's not one way to do it. And once you realize that it's just, there's so much parallels from, I use a lot of what I learned and what I know as a hitter and apply it to pitching. Like it's not,
Same with turn
it's
double
not
plays.
just, it's, there's so many different elements and different things that you can add to your game, and you can shorten the learning curve just by implementing it from playing other sports, playing basketball, playing like all these different things. But the main thing through all of that is being aware in your body. And the only way you're going to be able to do that is to just be athletic and be able to move and understand your body, because baseball is such a skill-based rotational sport that you can get caught kind of like being too mechanical and a lot of those things. And you see some of the best players in the game and they make it look so easy because they're just being athletes. They're not being mechanical robots.
Yeah.
Well, that's something that I'm seeing more and more too. With you talk about seeing all this information, whether it's on Instagram or Twitter, and all the different hitting gurus in the world, and people are teaching so many things that essentially are what we call non-teaches. That there are just athletic movements that when you do certain things correctly, they show up. They just happen. And so many times when you harp on doing something that should be a non-teach, you end up like out-learning yourself and not being able to actually do it, because it's the body's natural way of unfolding and things of that nature. And it's just a slippery slope to go down.
It's like my golf game when I'm standing over the ball, I'm like, lock this elbow. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And then it's like shank to the right.
But if you just walk up
1,000
there
yards,
and just
but
hit
then
it.
I get mad. I'm just like, drop another ball and I just crank and
Player B is always way better.
yeah.
Well, when you watch different guys on the PGA, like you would never teach someone Scotty Scheffler's swing.
Yeah.
You wouldn't
Because
teach.
it goes against so many fundamental.
John Rahm swing.
Yeah, John Rahm swing,
It's like
Scotty like there are certain guys that like Rory's the picture perfect swing. You know, that clip of Tiger saying that if you could build Charlie a son's swing,
Look at Rory.
it'd be Rory. But not everyone is designed or built that way, and we all, Max is 6'5",
6'4".
still growing 2 to 3 inches
still growing
every
2
year.
or 3 inches every year.
Every year.
So that certain things that may work for him and his cues. I know it's for pitching, but Max could rake. I'll give him some kudos. Max could
Talk
rake.
about being an
And
athlete.
we would
Thank
talk
you.
about hitting a lot, and
Thank you.
Yeah, talk
certain
about being an
certain
athlete.
things that may work for him don't work for me. We all have these different capabilities or body limitations, and it's super interesting just to like
Well, it's like,
understand
too,
someone else's thought process.
Like, I know you probably don't do it as much anymore, but how you just sometimes get in the left-handed batter's box
hit lefty all
and
the
just
time.
hit lefty just to have that other sort of movement.
Well, just it's never been coached, so it's like we talk about pure athleticism. I just go in there and I just hit.
Yeah.
There's no thinking. There's no about where do my hands go. It's like, all right, he starts moving. I start
Bat the ball.
waggling, just,
Bat the ball.
Just turn. Put the
Yeah.
barrel on it, and then you start doing it right hand. You're like, oh god, I need to feel this.
yeah,
and do
I need
this.
to
and you
get
don't
on
let
those
the
rails.
athlete- you don't let the athlete. Yeah, he filmed a session with Brum, and he's got all the lingo now. He was helping him with his golf game too. Brum's talking about these certain things. He's like, yeah, if we were golfing, Mason's like, hold on, let me.
Dansby, we're recording a video, and Brum's like, I mean, if you're golfing, and Dansby goes, oh, you want to talk about the golf swing? I was like, no, but yes. If we're talking
Yeah.
about clearing the
Let's-
front hip, I'm locked in.
Yeah.
I understand.
Let's finish this and then we'll get on the golf game.
And we did. We talked golf for like 45 minutes afterwards.
Yeah, that's why y'all were late.
Yes, it's precisely. So going back to youth sports, when it comes to advice you'd give, other than I would say the consensus agreement here is multi-sport, do different things, get out of your comfort zone in that regard. What are some pieces of advice that you would give to younger kids?
I would say here I'm gonna give advice to what I would tell myself when I was
A young Max.
yeah
5'4".
because I was 5'4" before I grew the 2 to
Eighth
3
grade.
inches every year, and that's take chances and actually be okay with the failure, because the failure is going to allow you to learn that much quicker. I think a lot of times, especially when I was younger, I was so scared to fail that I would play it safe a lot of the times, or I'd put too much pressure on myself. And a lot of it really got forced on me when I got into pro ball, where I was failing because, you're going up against guys who are the exact same talent level as you, if not better. Like guys are guys are throwing harder, they have better command. The guys that you're facing are stronger, they hit the ball farther, they can hit your velocity. Like, I got forced to fail in the minor leagues, and it was very humbling. But I wish I would have allowed myself the freedom to have that vulnerability earlier, so I can say, okay, these are actually my limitations. I'm going to either know that this does work or make the adjustment because this isn't working. And being okay and saying that failure is going to happen and it's a part of the game, and truly buying into that, rather than, a lot of the times when you're a kid, you hear something, it goes in one ear out the other because you hear it for face value, but it doesn't sink in, or actually you can't really like feel the weight of those words. So yeah, I would just say push your boundaries, see what you're capable of, and truly be okay with the failures that come along with it, because especially at the high school level, like, it's not, it's not the same rigors, or like you're not losing a job, you're not fighting for your livelihood. Like, you're still learning, you're still a kid, you're still trying to figure it out. And when you're doing that, you're going to learn a lot about the game within the game, and the different things and the different elements that come along with becoming a complete baseball player, rather than just being really good at a certain individual facets of it.
Yeah, it's kind of like going back to the idea that everyone is so afraid to fail, in the sense that if you give, like we talked about this a couple of podcasts ago, I forget which one, but if you give maximum effort and then you fail, like, everyone knows.
Hurts.
Yeah, this is funny because
That's a
so-
tough pill to swallow.
Yeah.
And so I went to a class. It's a U.S. history or U.S. Sport and Society class, and I said, "Hey, I'm having a podcast tonight." They all know, like, they're well in tune with what we do. I said, if you can come up with like 2 or 3 topics or questions, maybe I'll throw one out there in the podcast. And the class kind of went, what do you mean my class? I totally took over this teacher's class, started lecturing.
Classic.
And we started talking
He's
about
a historian, by the way.
Yeah.
Discuss this.
He started talking about like the problems we have and how kids don't push it to that full limit because they're scared of what's going to happen if they do. And we had a track kid, and he was saying, yeah, like, we have times, and some people struggle to make the times. And he said, but we're only running at like 90%. And I'm like, well, why are you only running at 90%? He's like, well, I'm like,
I don't want to do it all and not
make the time. Because if you do, you're forced to be held accountable.
And there's a little bit of you that sits there and says, like,
oh, I wasn't running.
Well, I wasn't running. Like, it's, if I really wanted to,
I could make it.
Oh, like, I've been there. I've
scared
done
of
that a lot.
what your friends say,
me?
or
oh yeah, and that's what. So we got in the conversation about, obviously big there, the clip of you after the Philadelphia game and how upset you were. And they were asking me about it. And I said, guys, it's because you see these guys who are so upset at the end of the year because they have truly they have poured everything they have into that. And so what you're seeing is them trying to handle the raw emotion of failure. And it's not like they failed in front of the local town. You know what I mean? You guys failed or
Mom
whatever.
and dad.
Yeah, in front of mom and dad. Like, it was in front of everybody. And then immediately you have a microphone stuck in your face of, what's going to go on, or what's going to happen, or how do you feel? Like, how do you think I feel? And so it's just kind of interesting to kind of hear that sort of perspective about failure, because failure is scary, but it goes back to the Kobe Bryant thing. Like, you only really fail if you stop trying. Like you said, you learn how to fail, and then you take that and you build. Well, that's not failure. That's just you learning.
Progress.
That's progress.
There's no such thing as failure, really.
No, until you stop.
It's kind of like I said. It is a tough pill to swallow. It's something that you wish that you could just like coast by. A lot of the guys, especially at this level we're at now, are probably the best kid in their town, or all of those kinds of different things growing up. Best in their little league, best in their high school, best in their college.
They've only been the best.
You could, for the most part, like, at those levels, you can coast by a little bit. Like, you can get by being on or being able to just flip the switch on and off whenever you want. But when you get to that next level, I would say there's probably the amount of like on one or two hands that could still do that. It's
Yeah.
very, very
Truly
little.
gifted.
It's like
it's a different stratosphere of talent.
yeah, it's
Almost like Ronald in a way. We've talked
Yeah.
about that.
oh no,
Like,
yeah.
Ronald can
it's
That
it's the
dude.
most gifted baseball player I've been
Yeah.
around. Just the things he's able to do.
no, he's as special as of a player as I've ever seen. You know, and I've played with him every year. Every year since 2016, maybe even 2016, because that's when I came back from Tommy John. We were in low A together, and then I went to double A, and he came to double A, and then triple A in the big leagues, and saw his debut and the whole thing. And every year he just gets a little bit better. He learns a little bit more, but he's a guy that he has a rough couple ones, and then it's just like, okay, I'm going to show you and turn it on, and you're just
Yeah.
like, whoa,
Yeah.
like that's
Special.
different. That's different.
Special.
It's got a
But even
freak
someone
ability.
that special, like you said, every year he's coming back with learned a little bit more.
Oh,
He
yeah.
failed at some things. He's learning from that. And
That-
like,
And
That's
he's
one thing I don't think he gets enough appreciation for.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was there for, I saw him since he was like a little pup.
Mm.
And I remember seeing him like that guy. I remember seeing him like, this guy is different.
Yeah.
Like, I could just tell. And that's one thing he doesn't get enough credit for is, yes, he is gifted more than most, if not all. But his ability to make adjustments, his ability to learn and grow within the game, and to be able to dominate. And also, I think one thing that you told me that I was just super proud of him for this season was the extra work that he was doing,
Mhm.
was the things that he started to learn about as being a pro. Because I always say that there's these different phases. Like, you come into the game when you're a young kid and you're just happy to be there. You're just enjoying it, having fun, and you're playing well. And then reality hits you a little bit, and you have to learn how to become a pro. You have to learn how to not necessarily take things more seriously, but you have to learn routines. You got to learn how to take care of your body and all these different facets. And then once you get that handled, it's almost you go back to learning how to just compete and have fun again. And I feel like he did such a great job this year. And I mean, you could speak to it a little bit more of just how he grew in the professional aspect.
Mhm.
And not saying he was ever a bad teammate or
No.
professional in that sense.
Yeah.
It was
No.
just he learned how to take ownership over what he wanted, and he could go out and do it. He was putting in the extra work in the weight room,
Yeah.
prehab type stuff, and really just grew up in that sense. And
Mm-hmm.
when I heard that, I was just
Yeah.
giving a
You
little
love
golf
to
clap
see
to
it. You
myself.
love to
Like, I'm
see
just
it.
so proud, because that's one thing that I always try and teach by example, but also teach the younger kids about, hey, learn what works for you, learn your routine, learn your rhythms, learn how you're going to game plan for the day, or learn what you need to do to take care of your body so that you can be successful.
Yeah.
not
day
going to
in,
be
day out.
young forever.
No. And I think that was for him, just being able to sit back and watch a little bit. But the injury to his knee, I think it just gave him a little bit more structure and a little bit more of a routine that he had to do every day with rehab and, properly warming up and stretching. And there was a lot of just, you could see it was just like every day before the game at the same exact time he was on the bike, or he was, getting his warm up in, or doing the little things that I think as a younger player at, the 19, 20, 21-year-old him that he was kind of doing, where when you're that young, you roll out of bed and you feel great all the time. And it's, it's different.
play ball.
It's a different type of game. There's a different level that you need to get your body ready, but you can just see there was a little bit more attention to the detail and the little things that when you get through a long season, they really help you towards the end. And I mean, I'm not surprised that he went 40-70 and did the things that he did. He's as talented as they come.
Yeah.
Well, that's like when I think your first spring with the Braves was what year? 16? and Ronald, he was there. And he was like 16.
I mean, he wasn't even in big league camp. It was
No. And
straight
I remember
grinding
you and I were on a call, and you're like, dude, let me tell you something. I think I saw the best baseball player I've ever seen in my life, and the kid's not even 16 years old. He's like 16. And I was like,
Yeah,
what?
He was like he was. I think he came up for. He probably came over for a couple games and just.
It was
like,
when I'd gone down and we were inter squatting, and I remember he hits this ball so hard, like a line drive right over the center fielder's head. And usually when that happens, you're like, all right, cut, double cut, going to third base, because we may have a chance of throwing him out if he's thinking about going to third. And brother, I caught the ball and it was like, no, abort ship. Abort ship. Yeah. Maybe let's chuck it into home because he's, freaking
flying.
Yeah. It was like he was guaranteed third base.
Yeah.
Potentially we're going home, and I'm like, I've never seen anything like this.
Shoot
Well,
forward, shoot forward.
Yeah, you had to turn them hips quick. But no, you told me the story about him. You said that, I guess it was during an I may have not been, I don't know, but you said he was playing left and someone hit a ball over his head and they were like kind of lackadaisical, like coming around third to score, and he threw him out from the fence.
Oh yeah, I mean it's
like on a line.
It's freakish, bro.
He's like
his arm strength is, he just messes around and he'll just stand on like the right field line, and just my favorite one's in Arizona. He literally stands on the right field line, the long toss there, and throw the ball over the center field fence
without crow hopping. Just
just like just literally like 1, 2, pew, and you just see this thing just. There's a lot of things about like to.
Well, we've like talked about like Dansby too, growing into a leader and like learning, and you see it too, just like always you just feel like you can lead by example. That's not always the case. Like if you're doing the right things doesn't necessarily mean it. Like it's good to lead by example, but like sometimes you got to flip that switch and lead in different ways. So,
well, and I was gonna say, just obviously us growing up Braves and him and everything, the Braves have made a lot of, I would say, clubhouse guys have made other moves during the off seasons. And so like this year especially, I felt, I don't know. Obviously we don't know, but in the media, it seems like they were trying to force people to be leaders, which I always say you can't do that. And one of the names that kept coming up was yours. So I was just curious to see from your perspective, was there any of that pressure sort of felt, or were guys looking to you because you were there during the World Series, you are this dominant force? I was just curious on that.
I think for me, there's an element to stepping into it, right? Just stepping into a different kind of role, understanding the progression of a career. You also look up and like, as far as the team, I have like the second most time on the team behind Ozzy, who's got me by like, I think it was 2 weeks or something like that from the time we got called up. So it's the amount of guys that have been on the team. I've been there for a long time, so just naturally people are gonna come up and ask you about like, what's going on, just the dynamics of a clubhouse and the way that things work. But yeah, I mean, it's about, I think, and Dansby can comment too, but it's a lot about being confident in what you do, who you are, and just being, I think it's a lot about just being authentically yourself. I'm someone that naturally is going to be very helpful to teammates. I'm willing to help a guy out. Feel like I'm fairly approachable. I don't feel like a lot of people are going to be able to not come up to me and say something. I might not be the most vocal guy, where I might not be like getting in your face, but being able to know what it takes to win at a consistent level in this game is something that you can't take lightly, and you can't take days off, and it takes a level of discipline and diligence of being able to stay on top of those things. And for me, it's about making sure that, especially the young guys that are coming up and that are pitchers, that you can kind of help that learning curve. Essentially, I had a lot of really great older veteran guys to be able to do that for me, where if they see that I'm going through a certain struggle, or I'm hitting a certain roadblock, or there's certain things that happened in my timeline of my career that they went through, that they approached me and kind of helped me out to be able to shorten that curve and avoid some of the mistakes that they had made. That and I think it's a lot about of just taking that information that older players have passed down to you and being able to pass that down to them, and being open and encouraging, because this is an extremely hard game. Even though I might not be on the failure side, where like I'm failing 7 out of 10 times, there's still a lot that is very difficult about this game. And when you have that support from your teammates, and guys that might have been around or a little bit longer, it takes a little bit of that pressure off your back. Like you don't have to weather all of this whole storm by yourself. So I think a lot of it is, for me, it's a lot about that, and being able to share that information with guys and teammates to be able to be their best selves, and to, if you can get a guy to be authentically and genuinely themselves on the field, that's when they're going to perform the best.
Yeah, and it's interesting because we were talking to, again, the same class, and most of the kids that take the class are athletes, and it comes down at a high school level, I think, to accountability. And the issues that they have stems around the fact of they also don't lead by example. So if one guy gets on to another guy for, let's say, body language, let's take like basketball, for example, and the next play he fumbles the ball, whatever, turns it over, and then his body language is bad, they look at him and they go, well, why are you getting on me when you're doing the exact same thing? But then because they're buddies, they also don't want to check each other, which is funny though, because
I used to be in Dansby's face.
Oh, we used to get into it all the time because we're all so competitive. We didn't matter. We want to win and we want the result, and the kids, but now it's very buddy and it's kind of mixed a little bit. So it's just kind of interesting to hear, because you're also dealing with grown men and it's a business.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of different, because it's like, okay, like,
I think it's easier to approach that kind of person if they know that you're coming at it or from a good place,
yeah,
right?
good spot.
Like if you take what you do seriously, and you're focused on the ultimate goal, which is to be winning and to win a World Series, like I would, if I'm doing something that isn't up to those standards, like I would hope that one of my teammates would come and check me and say like, hey, like you're not doing X, Y, and Z. This is our ultimate goal, and you're committed and dedicated to this, but you're not performing to those standards every single day. If you don't have the ability to have people that are going to check you or check each other and be accountable, then you're breeding more or less substandard or mediocrity. And I don't think that when you're trying to reach the pinnacle of being the best team in the best league in the world, you can't do that by accepting anything less than the best.
You got to build a good roster.
Well, I was going to say, baseball is, I mean, you only get what, 3? Your best hitter gets 3, maybe 4 at bats a game.
Right.
I mean, you have to hold the whole team to a certain standard, because it is such a team-centric game.
And they go, I mean,
your best pitcher pitches once every 5 days.
Yeah, and then even in that, like you're only pitching most of the times these days you're only pitching 2/3 of the game.
Right. Hopefully.
Right. That's it. I mean, leadership comes in so many different forms, man. And I think that as you get older, you start to hone in on like your craft of leadership. But a couple things that he said that I wanted to point out that's important is by him being his authentic self, that's a form of leadership because it gives the other guys around the permission to be themselves as well. Now, there's a component of that you have to teach them a little bit about how to be their best self, because who they authentically are may need some adjustments to become, in the professional manner to become this. It's not just, oh, do whatever you want because that's who you are. There is some chiseling that has to happen. And then the other thing would just be the willingness to share knowledge, the willingness to help teammates because you care about their success, because their success also leads to our success.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to do both, I think, is so huge. And sometimes that is having the difficult conversation. It's holding someone accountable. It's having a conversation that's uncomfortable. It's confronting someone about not upholding a standard or being late or whatever the case may be. And the only way to be able to do that is by building relationships. It's hard to get onto someone and get buy-in if you don't have a relationship with that person.
Mm-hmm.
It's more difficult to get the end goal if you don't have a relationship. Now, at times it can be more difficult to have the conversation because you have a relationship and you don't want to hurt their feelings, but it's the right route to go.
Yeah, part of being a good leader is being a good teammate. And
Right.
like they always talk about for teaching, like how are teachers effective? How do you start at the door? Like if that kid doesn't know you, if you've never talked to that kid, well, you can't expect them to respect you or, listen to you or anything like that. And you'd be surprised kind of, just how far that goes in every realm of life. So we were there for the World Series. I don't know if you
were
remember.
there.
I think I only missed one game.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I missed one
Which
game.
game did you miss?
You came to Houston the first time?
You
You only
for
missed
games
one
and two?
game.
I missed one game in Atlanta. And
I
then
missed one
was at
game in Atlanta.
6.
Yeah.
I was at game 6.
And we're at game 6.
Yeah, that's right.
Wild
So,
evening.
4 out of 6. I was
Famously
there.
got Jason Aldean into our after party.
Yeah, we did link up with him at the door.
And
Him-
Cole, but that was
and Cole-
inside.
Yeah, we linked with Cole, Hail Southern. Yeah, we met Jason Aldean at the door. We were waiting on Dansby to come let us in.
And
I think Mal
Mallory,
ended up letting us in.
the Boneyard Queen.
They were quite strict about who they were letting in. And so we were just kicking it with Jason Aldean for like 10 minutes waiting on Mal or Dansby to come
I
let us
do
in.
love when Mal gets in that mode though. Like when she's got
We
her
should've brought
mind
this
set
up
on
on-
something. They're like, no, they can't come in. And she's like, they're coming in.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
And they came in.
And we were there.
And we all rolled together.
Yeah.
You did that.
Y'all can ask the questions for this one.
World Series? Man.
Let's go.
I mean, what a time for
For
us.
us.
I mean, we had a ball.
We became champions as
Yeah,
well.
we were champions that night and forever.
And forever.
Banners fly forever.
Man, I don't even know where to start with the World Series. I guess let's just talk. I guess we start with Dodgers. Talk about the whirlwind that was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We're sitting next
I mean,
to
that whole series because the Brewers first. I mean, the whole postseason.
It was a very dramatic postseason.
Yeah.
I know.
I'm still strange
It-
from it.
We
It's
were
like a routine.
sitting.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're sitting next to Darno's parents
And brother.
and who else were we sitting next to? Well, in Houston, we were sitting next to Jesse's
Oh,
parents.
Yeah.
Or,
my-
no,
our boy
Jesse's
Jesse
dad
Chavez,
and brother.
Chavi. Yeah.
Electric
his Pops
Factory.
is the man.
The
bro.
man.
His pops is the man.
And then
He's the man.
Yeah.
the game y'all clinched to go to the World Series, we were sitting next to Tyler's family.
Oh,
And dude, it was so funny. His grandma,
I mean, that was probably the most electric appearance.
I think his grandma, that
Oh.
was his grandma, right?
One
I
of
think it was
family
his grandma.
members.
But so you guys were making the decision. Well, basically, Dansby and Freddie were making the decision whether or not to send.
He's going back out.
To send him back
You
out.
remember that? Did you know that?
Yeah,
No,
Snit
okay.
was
I
like,
heard about that.
you heard about that?
I think so.
Snit was talking about
Breaking news.
Snit was talking about him and Craney were kind of talking about potential
Who
like, should we send Matzek back out? And I just remember being like, yeah, like he's going back out. This is the postseason. Like he's going back out.
Yeah.
There's no ifs, ands, or
There's
buts
no
about it.
other
And I'm like,
option.
hey, Freddie, come here.
Actually,
Like we're sending Matzek back out, right? And Freddie's like, wait, that's a
Even a
discussion?
question?
It's,
Yeah.
it's like,
Send him.
Matzek, you're back out there,
Send
man.
him, dude.
I was actually no, I was in the bullpen.
Oh, that's right.
I was in the bullpen because we had that day off after
It was like your bullpen day,
game
technically.
5 because I threw game 5 and I didn't have a good outing, so I was like,
Wasn't your
I'm
best.
available. I'm going down to the pen. I'm putting my spikes on. If we need me, I'm down
'Cause
there.
it's
So I
technically
went down in
the
like
arms
fifth
For
inning.
people, for people that don't know, though, that can be standard in postseason because
yeah,
Mhm.
day 2 is typically a bullpen
so
day.
Like, if
So
I
it's
could go
like
out there for an inning, or if they needed, that wasn't the 3-batter minimum. I don't think yet.
I don't think
may
so.
or may not have
No,
been.
I
don't
don't
think
think
so.
so.
Could have been, could have not. But I was.
I can
I
go
was
get outs if I
available.
need it. Yeah.
But
I was
anyways,
available.
I really do think it was his grandmother was like crying that he was going back out there, and Mitchell and
I
I
might have been too.
Mitchell and I turned to her and we go, we have no other choice.
We're in this together.
He has
now.
to go back out there. If you want to go to the World Series, that is our best chance right there. He has to go. He has to do this. This is a Braveheart moment.
And he did it.
Get out there. And he did
Did
it.
he do
And
it?
he did it.
Oh, did
And
he
it
do
was
it?
electric.
Yeah.
I think we hugged her. I started crying.
Yeah.
I
my
think at one
favorite-
point I was like, I can't watch, and you're like, you get your ass up here. You watch this.
You
game.
watch this. I can't do it. He's like the little girl from Remember the Titans.
Yeah.
But no, so not now. I'm like, Mitchell. So we clinched there. That was
That was
awesome.
when y'all came down the field.
Got to
We
come
got
down
on the
the field.
field.
Funniest moment is I lost Lexi during
Yeah.
that moment, and I look up and she's taking pictures of Ronald Acuna and his family, and she's like, "He was so nice. Who was that?" I'm like, "Get over here, lock in." So we then obviously the World Series, that was electric. Game 6 in Houston. I mean,
Yeah, let's talk
Dude.
about Game 6.
kudos to you, brother.
Yeah, better
the-
not talk about game 2.
No, we're going
I
straight to
forgot
6.
about
We're
that.
going straight to
same,
6.
same. Yeah, game 2 for me.
I
We're
forgot
going
about
straight
that.
to 6.
Game two wasn't our best, but
When you got you got stepped on,
Stepped
right?
on.
yeah.
Let's just go. Let's go.
Yeah,
let's
go
go
through
down it because I remember Altuve starts off the game.
with the
hits a
single.
It was like the infield single, deep 6 hold,
Yep.
beats out to first.
Mm-hmm.
Then Brantley comes up
Yep.
after that, and that's when you get
The
stepped on.
ground, the ground ball. I thought Freddie was going to throw the ball to second to turn 2, and
Mhm.
he like came up,
Double
and then
clutched it.
turned, and then I caught the ball, didn't know where the bag was.
Athlete,
Hit it.
though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't
The
know.
catch
I don't
and
know
the
how-
step
I don't
simultaneously.
know how. I kind of just like luckily had all of my weight on my left side, and I was just trying to like search for the bag with my right, so it was pretty limp. So when I felt him kind of also very thankful he was wearing rubber spikes.
Mm.
I kind of just like felt it, and I was able to just like just like internally rotate my knee and just kind of like brace.
Internally.
I was trying to figure out the word, but
He just went
no,
limp.
I just kind of tried to just fold into it, and I guess like I hit the bag after, but I think
He
from
never
what I was
touched
told
the ball.
afterwards, like if
He-
the runner passes first base and doesn't hit the bag, you can't just step on the bag. You have to go tag the
Tag
guy.
him. Yeah.
Mm.
So didn't know that at the time, or I would have tagged him.
That's how we
but,
learned from it.
Yeah, after that, it was just
Did that flip a switch? Or I mean, the
I
switch was already
mean,
flipped. It's Game 6 of
it
World
was
Series, or-
basically.
Well, I mean, it was 2 weak ground balls. Like, let's call it is what it is. It's
Yeah,
not like you weren't
I mean,
locked in
but
before that.
Yeah.
I feel like
Well,
in
that's what I'm
game 2 there
saying.
was a lot of those kinds of hits too, where
Bloopers,
I was
man.
just kind of like trying to massage my way through it, and it got to be first and second, and I just basically said like, "This is
Kid
now.
friendly.
This
F
is
it.
Yeah.
like, no, like this is now or never. Like this
Now
is
or
the
never.
breaking point. Like this is exactly what happened last game. This is if there's a time to like put it all on the line and like try to stop this bleed. Like in my head, I was like, if I can come out of this with just one run,
Right.
it's a win.
Mhm.
Like I know that we'll score more than one run. If I can hold them to one run and not have this be a blow up inning, we're good. And just trying to get ahead. Gotta
Got
strike out.
Correa strikeout.
Yep, strikeout, and
Alvarez.
then I got a ground ball, and then
Yep.
ground ball on a 2-seamer, and then
Struck out.
Gurriel on just
looking.
like three heaters that I tried to throw as hard as I could.
Yeah.
And they
Just
were
ripping and
literally
ripping,
on it,
baby.
Yeah.
If you would have
so,
looked
like,
up, you'd have seen me, Mitchell, and Jesse's dad getting excited.
I don't show emotion very much, especially
Yeah.
not in the first inning. But I just like I gave everything that I possibly could, like to my core. When talking about being vulnerable and
Mhm.
like if I'm gonna lose being 100% myself or whatever, and all of that. Like that was 100% of me, and and after that it was just more of like, okay, let's
Yeah.
Well, then I remember too that next. So we hadn't scored yet. He comes back out for the second inning, and Kyle Tucker's leading off, and he hits that dribbler over your head.
Oh my gosh! I was
That
like, here we
I-
go again.
Here we
Yeah,
And
and
then-
go.
I remember it was such a good play for me because sometimes the routine plays it wasn't my best series. I had my moments, but it was one of those plays where it was literally, once again, I'm just going to lay it out here, vulnerable,
Yeah.
go for it, went for it, and ended up making a nice barehanded
Oh,
play. And
electric.
Yeah.
and
I was just like-
I was even kind of saying like,
Here we go.
perfect.
Yeah. Here we
Like
go.
I needed something that just
Keep you going.
sparks you because you're not. There's no thinking. It's just I'm
You're
flying
reacting.
as fast as I can to that ball.
and I'm throwing it as
And
hard
there's
as I
only
can.
one way to catch it, and that's with my bare hand and throw it. And then
Yeah, after dancing me at that play, my shoulders dropped about 3 inches, and I just was like, okay, now we
get the
can go.
leadoff man out. Like
Now we
we're
can
in
go.
good shape.
Yeah.
And then I think it was that next inning that Soler hit the infamous.
Yeah.
Goodbye,
I
baseball.
think, I think it was the
I think it was the third inning.
third inning.
Yeah.
To the moon.
Oh, the little guy on the train was in jeopardy, and then it just
30 feet over him.
then it just kept rising.
But the best is, I think Dansby in that, like that. I don't even know when you did the interview, but showed the clip, the whole team jumping up and down. You just see Max in the back of the dugout.
You guys towel.
Yeah, I
Just-
talked to Travis about it because Travis wasn't in there, but me and Travis were stone faced.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
just
He wouldn't let you. I remember.
Well,
he
no,
was,
it wasn't. I already knew because there was an instance in the game before. Duvey hit the grand slam,
Mhm.
oh,
and
Celebrated like
everyone in
We're
the
there.
dugout was
Yeah.
going crazy, and
was that the first?
I
inning?
just knew that.
Yeah.
That was great. Soler hitting a home run and giving us some runs and giving some cushion is fantastic.
the game's
Gotta
not
But
finish.
it doesn't mean anything if I
Mhm.
go out there and give up 2 to 3 in the next inning.
right.
Like after that was hit, it was like, okay, this is now the most important inning that you have to throw. You have to go and throw a shutdown inning and stop any kind of momentum, and just that's where we have to be at right now.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Like I have no control over the hitting, DHing. I'm not like DH is being, is hitting for me. Like I don't have to worry about hitting at all I have to worry
Just-
about is just pitching. What do I have to do? That's what I'm gonna focus on.
Right.
And I can celebrate after Snit takes the ball from me and says like, good job.
Good job.
And I remember too, because game 2 didn't necessarily go your way. I just remember you kind of coming up to me before that game and saying to like Travis, basically saying, we're going to do this how we've always done this. You're going to go off what you see, what I see. We're just going to go completely off, almost like feel. We've put this game
Just
plan
being-
together, but I'm going to
Being authentically myself.
I'm gonna
I'm
pitch.
gonna pitch. I'm not gonna. Felt like there was some times where whether it's like I broke out the most changeups in that game that I had thrown in my career up to that
lefty
point.
on lefty too.
I was throwing more changeups, and it was just more of like, I'm gonna pitch and I'm gonna be myself, and I'm just gonna move the ball around. And it was a lot of the being, if they're gonna beat me, they're gonna beat 100% of me, and I can live with that.
Right.
But I'm not gonna sit there and not. I'm not going to sit there and be scared to be myself or, all of those things and get beat and then sit there and be like, well, what could have been? Because
Right.
what could have been is not good enough. It's like you either at that point, and it's one thing that, why we get along so well, but it's like At a certain point, it's either you do or you don't. It doesn't matter how it gets done. You just got to get it done. So it's
Right.
like, what is going to happen to go get that done? And we're going to go do it.
At what point in that game did you know that we were going to win?
Was it when Dansby hit a home run? Are you fishing? Are you fishing
No,
for
I'm
that?
not,
You want us
but
to
if
talk about
that's
your
what
home
we
run?
go for,
Were you
then-
still pitching when he hit his home run,
Uh,
or did you get to celebrate that one?
I
pretty
was done
sure-
after the 6th, and I know
I'm-
that we.
I'm
'Cause that-
pretty
to
sure-
me,
I'm
that
pretty
was
sure
like-
that was in the.
That was like the icing.
I think
on the
that was
cake.
in the 5th inning.
Yeah,
I
I
wanna
think
say.
it was 4-0. You hit it with 3-0. You hit a solo homer.
No, 2-run.
Two.
Ozzy was on
Two.
second.
Was the Solaires was a 2-run? Or
So Lairs was a 3, mine was a 2. Freddie
Freddie.
hit
What's the
a
final
Freddie
score
hit
of that
a
game?
7-0.
7-0.
Freddie hit a RBI double
Yep.
and a solo homer.
Let's have a day.
Yeah, he.
I would say it probably settled in once when Freddie hit his. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, I think we have this pretty good. But at that point, like that offense
My-
was so good. It's not that our bullpen was
Shut
Lights
down
out.
nails.
Lights out.
insane. But at that point,
You just never know.
you
In
can't
that park,
you can't
in that park-
overlook you can't overlook your opponent in the postseason,
Ever.
especially one that has been there in the World Series. That was their third or fourth
Third
time
in
in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Like you can't
in that park
Yeah.
with that lineup, anything can happen. You never know when the
And especially
momentum
they came
will
back
switch.
they came back from 5 runs in the game before, so it's like you can't count them out.
Right.
Yeah.
At home too. It's like they were gonna go out
Dude,
swinging.
the best is that clip of all the towels waving, and then Soler just yak daddy's that one, dude. They just
They all
dropped
just dropped.
simultaneously, dude. It
The
was
best part too is where we were sitting. Like you could see him hit it, but then there's like a little overhang, which is kind of interesting for that stadium design. So you see him hit it, and then you just
ball
don't see
disappeared. Yeah,
anything.
the ball-
Like the
The
ball's
ball
just
literally going
gone.
to the
Gone.
solar system.
Yeah.
You like that?
No,
Yeah.
I didn't.
It
The
was
solar system.
Yeah, dude. I
Very
bet
funny.
that had to feel like
And
just
then-
pure off the bat.
You probably didn't feel it.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like
That's
just
kinda
pure.
That's kind of like how mine felt. It's about as hard.
We
as far
saw
as I can
we
go.
saw Dansby's the whole time.
Yeah, we had good eyes on that one.
It didn't go over the.
It was
over.
it was like 300 feet less than the one that we're talking about.
They're
Larry's-
long
so it went
table.
about 300 feet.
Yeah, so they're still
better launch
rolling.
And then we had a super chill night, pretty calm, cool, collected
Yeah,
after
it
that.
was
A lot of
whatever.
Catan.
Yeah, it was chill.
Yeah, just hung on the room.
Yeah, it was chill.
Nothing fun.
And then I had maybe the worst flight of my life the next
I
day.
I remember being so exhausted at that party though.
I
Oh,
remember you.
had to
I remember
be
you sitting on the
cooked.
couch, just like.
I was just like,
And I was like,
I
"You good?"
get very like just depleted and just like dead, but I was, yeah, like after that you've got that and everyone's celebrating, everyone's so happy, and like inside I was really excited, but just like body wise, just
completely
dead.
gassed.
Just so dead, just being like, I can't wait to get back up to my room and just like knock out.
I know. I pass you and I go, "You good?" You go, "Oh yeah."
I just,
Oh,
remember, I
yeah.
just remember Mason and Zach. They're like, "Bro, we got to go." We were like, not saying we were like the first people to leave, but like there was a lot of people still there, and they're like, "Dude, we have to go. Our flight's in like 5 hours." I was like, "What time is it?" Like 4:30 in the morning.
Dude, yeah. That was a long. Then we walked home. Conveniently close.
Yeah, almost missed our flight. So it was chill. It was chill.
Yeah, we had a
it
real
was
good
chill.
That
time.
movie didn't get over
It
till
was-
4:30.
So yeah, congrats on World Series,
Yeah.
man.
Ball
Great
talk.
time. Great time. Great time then. Great time now. Appreciate you coming on.
Thank you.
It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, all love.
You can do it in person.
Thanks for having me back, guys.
Yeah.
It was a pleasure.
Yeah, man. Absolutely.
It's our first recurring guest, huh?
Yeah.
Am I actually the first recurring?
Yeah.
Recurring.
Second interview?
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
You've made the cut.
Love that.
Yeah. VIP
Congrats,
now.
man.
See you next season.